Now I could ship this app and probably charge people for it.
And when Jesse has shown me those apps, or I mean, even what we're looking at right now, and he's doing it live, like this is another one, this LeadMagic Command Center.
It took me like a day probably to build. Basically, I just wanted to track every time somebody mentioned our company on LinkedIn. So I just built this basically, and this was all vibe code, right? Now I could ship this app and probably charge people for it. They would probably buy it because it's valuable and it updates every day. But like this took me like a day to build now. And I would say this is on par with any sort of SaaS application that's out there from a, just looking at it. But this, what I want to track is like, are they talking about us? What are they saying about our company? We get a lot of inbound leads just because people mention us, but this is like an internal application for our company, right? We have a CRM that's internal. We basically just built every app internally instead.
Welcome back to the show. Today, I'm super excited for this one. We are joined by really one of the most elite vibe coders around. Our guest today is the founder and CEO of LeadMagic, Jesse Ouellette. LeadMagic is an online platform. It takes your prospecting data, turns it into customers, giving you accurate emails, mobile numbers, and validating all of your data seamlessly. Jesse, welcome to the show, my friend. How you doing?
Good chatting with you, man. Good to talk to you again, Pete.
Absolutely. Okay. Now, Jesse, we know what we're going through today, but I want to give the audience a big context for what we're doing on this show. Today, Jesse is going to live vibe code a full SaaS app, a full platform, and actually launch the thing. So for folks who don't know what vibe coding is, if this is a new term to you, AI has given us the power to give text inputs and have all of these incredible outputs. I'm sure we've all made videos, pictures. I made a bunch of memes for my fantasy football team last week. That was a good time. You can really do anything with just this text input. And something incredibly valuable is, text input to code output. Now, when I originally started doing text input to code output, Jesse, was really just that HTML kind of stuff. I could kind of turn a PDF into a nice web app. You're going way deeper than that. You're actually building functional SaaS software with robust backends, admin panels, the whole bit. So that was the setup. Can you tell the folks what we're going to build today? What type of app is going to be built here? And
Yeah. So really, when you think about it, is the presentation layer of these applications. When you have them, you start to look at the like what comes out to the user, and really all of that is driven by APIs. And APIs can come from really a lot of places, right? Your web browser reads APIs and then renders the graphics. But what we're going to do today is one of the things that a lot of people sort of want to do is they use tools like Lovable, they use Bolt, V0. I'll just show people how to use it with like V0 just for the simplicity of this thing today. But what it is you really want to be able to get, so we started with a prompt. We're building a champion tracker. There's a lot of tools out there that do this in the market, and really it starts with an API that you're going to use to get the data. And really what you do is you think about it this way. You say, all right, I can make the presentation layer. It's going to be some sort of sidebar. So what I did is I came into the application and I said, all right, let's say I want to make a sidebar SaaS where, we'll share this later, but it's going to use an API that exists, which is documented. So that's the best way to do it. Find one that's documented. And then what you're going to do is you're going to say, we're going to get it out of that API, and then you're going to have statuses. You're going to display that to the user. So you're going to have that. So I built a prompt for people. This is a one-shot sort of YOLO type prompt. YOLO stands for you only live once kind of prompt. Developers might not like this, but it's sort of easier now, right? You can get these applications built pretty quickly, right?
And
so
Jesse,
if you
real quick,
define, Yeah,
Real
go
quick,
ahead.
Jesse, could you shrink the width of your screen? It'll make the text bigger
Yes.
for the folks. That is beautiful. How's that, everybody?
Yep.
Is that good? And then so we have this YOLO prompt, this huge freaking prompt that you're going to put into V0. So ChatGPT is not going to be doing the coding itself, but what you're doing with ChatGPT is formulating this really, really long prompt that would take probably forever and wouldn't be as clean for another bot to understand. So we're like having one bot draft up a prompt for another bot, and this, as you describe as the YOLO prompt, has everything. So what are the main sort of things in here? We have the data and API integration. What else is in
Yeah.
here?
So basically for the application, and look, we took a pretty big chance here by doing this live, of course. So there could be bugs. We're not sure. That's why we want to keep you in suspense here. But basically what we're doing is we're building an application on some of the latest technologies that's out there. It's a champion tracker app. It's going to have a login screen, a dashboard. In there, it's going to have sort of it's going to have like a dashboard with a bunch of cards that are summarizing a watch list. Now, what a watch list will be is that'll be your standard like champions that you're watching. So some people have used like user jams or things like that. I mean, they have a lot more in their platforms, but this is similar to those types of technologies, right? They kind of watch champions to see if they move companies. That's sort of the mindset is if your champion moves to another company, you might be able to sell them more technology. So that's sort of where that goes. And then you're going to be able to add some champions to the list, and you give it the company name, and they'll know, then you know where they've moved to.
Real
So
quick.
if
So oh yeah, sorry, continue. You're
Yeah,
all good.
so just that's the dashboard side. So yeah, if you have any questions there, that'll be like what's on the dashboard.
So what is the and let's just connect this back to the original prompt. So the original
Yep.
prompt from you. So like you have a prompt, and we'll guys, we'll find some way to give you this prompt after the show. Maybe we'll follow Jesse on LinkedIn and we'll promote it or something, and we'll send it to you. But let's connect this to the smaller prompt that I'm going to say prompt a billion times during this show. The smaller prompt generated this prompt, which you're going to give to V0. What was the line in the smaller prompt that sort of outlined that that was what you needed?
I just put like build a V0 prompt, and then gave it sort of the API information that I wanted to use, and then sort of inspiration of how I wanted to scaffold the actual application. So it
So there was
started
a
with
lot of invention from ChatGPT here. Like it really kind of
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
took
the
it and
key.
run. Yeah.
Mhm. And this type of prompt, you could convert it to Bolt, you could convert it to V0, you could convert it to Lovable, or whatever technology system you wanted to, and build whatever app. And this is where I think it gets really interesting, because really anybody can build an app as good as the ones that are out in the market today, right? There is security and there's some other issues, and I've tried to like mitigate a lot of that in this app, but you'd want a security governance operation. You want to be very careful there before you ship it, like completely ship it. But there's definitely services out there that could do that. So if you're like in your career right now and you absolutely hate your job, you might want to think about getting an MVP ready, because I'm always like, somebody's like, yeah, I'm thinking about an MVP, but like the more you think about these things, you could probably be already have revenue and you're coming in before you're even there.
And I'll add to that V0 and ChatGPT. I mean, granted, the beast versions of both systems you have to pay a little bit of money for. Although, granted, I think combined I pay like $40 a month or something for V0 and GPT. But like, you can literally start doing that for free with no expertise. Jesse's a sales and marketing guy. I'm a sales and marketing guy. Granted, I can't build these apps the way Jesse does just yet. I'm too new at this, but it is incredibly empowering. I'll continue to drop in the tools into the chat here, just so you guys at home can copy them down into sort of your short list of things to explore. And so we're gonna hop over to V0 in just a second. For folks who maybe just joined, Jesse, can you just give a high level, like very high level overview of the champion tracker? What is the overall value and sort of pitch of what this app does?
The pitch of the app is this one right here. What it does is it will check. So if you have people that you want to keep an eye on, your customers or whatever, the V0 of the app, right? Like that's the first version of it, the MVP, like that's what it stands for, is going to be just like a dashboard. And I started similarly the same way with my app, where it was just an email validation, which everybody does email validation, right? But this is the starting point, right? Something that you're building on. So dashboard, and then you got, the person hasn't changed job. So you submit, what the theory is you submit somebody's information to this. You submit like their business information, and then what happens on the other side of it is it detects if they've changed jobs, if they've never worked there, or if there's no change, right? Like those are like the statuses, right? And then you could use, this is just using an API to do that, right? Some of these APIs are through, like they're in Clay now, but obviously LeadMagic has the APIs as well to do this. But there's other ways to, there's a lot of APIs out there, and that's what ends up coming to the user, the presentation layer. So it's wherever your mind could go with this, right?
Yeah, and for the folks at home, just think of like, what other things do I need to connect together? Because I mean, shoot, if you look at even your own SaaS platforms, I mean, think of how many things are connected together in order to just make that thing operate. Usually, in almost every case, it's not purely your own code. You have to use, I mean, look, even if you're just using a payment processor, like you still have to API things over. So it's really a matter of like, what
And
outside
everything.
functionality do I need that I can't build myself? Looping that into your prompt, and then really a lot of the heavy lifting um, is happened by the bot. Just a couple things in the chat. Laura says, I'm a strategy girl and I've started the process of building my own app in ChatGPT. It's overwhelming and liberating at the same time. I hear that. Other Laura said, how do you handle bugs? We will get to bugs. Let's get something buggy
We
that
have
we
one
can.
now, actually, so we got some
Okay,
suspense here,
there we
actually.
go.
But yeah, we'll get there. This is funny. It's kind of happening, uh, but yeah. So we'll keep going through it, and then like the UI components. There's a lot of places for the UI components to come now. Like one UI component package that a lot of people use is ShadCN, which is there's a lot of different dashboards in here and stuff. So you can sort of do these, and yeah, it's starting to get to the point where all of these applications are looking very similar now, right? Because they're using a lot of the same building blocks, but you can open these inside V0 to like use them, right? And that allows you to get a lot more out of your investment there. So you don't have to, the components are really built already, right? You might make some tweaks to the colors and things like that, but don't go hiring like a lot of people would hire like a designer or something. Like a lot of that stuff is gone, right? It's not really the world
E-
anymore, right?
Even to the point where like you can have this app. I don't know if everybody in here knows this, but you could like, let's say Jesse has the app fully built. You could literally screenshot. Let's say I built an app. I could screenshot if I really love LeadMagic's, interface, which is a great interface. I could just screenshot it and be like, make it look more like LeadMagic, and it would totally recode it to look like that. So it's like you just have to know what you want for the most part, and it'll spit it out. Now, there's some questions on bugs in the chat here. So, Caitlin said, I've been vibe coding on Lovable, and the dashboard looked incredible, but the functionality was terrible. She says it literally did not work at all. And I saw a
Yep.
couple of other things. Nisha said, I have Vercel, Cursor, Lovable, Replit. She, Nisha just doesn't know what to use for which one. So just in the world of actually like, getting something for the beginners, getting something that's functional and not just a beautiful dashboard. Are there certain things that you use, systems you use to, I guess, ensure that
Yeah,
it's
one of
functional?
the ones that I love. So if that's happening, typically it's about how you plan the application in the beginning, and how you use the rules. So if for the newest users, I would start with something like a Lovable or Bolt or V0, right? Or Replit, like more of a less about the code, more about the actual how the UI UX looks on the presentation layer. But what's going to happen is you're going to need to get some functionality. So you're going to need to access like APIs and you're going to need to access other things. That's the part where it gets a little tricky, where you might need somebody that's done it a few times before. And that is where the problem comes. It's usually the two areas that people have a problem with is like the security, like the authentication and the like getting through that is a little bit harder, right? And then the other one is like operations, like does it get all of the data where you need it? Does it not look right? And that's where you may want to pay. Like what's the best way to do that is to possibly hire somebody to wing with, a wing person with you that is actually a developer that could actually help you fix that part, right? Like that's where you got to jump off a little bit and get some help is around when you're building, like when you're making API calls and you're moving data into a database. That would be the part that I would say you want to start to get people to help you.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge developer skill. Like when we think of developers, we think of people that type code. We're like, yes, for sure, but like the knowledge of how to structure architecture and how to like structure an application and like that is also very much within the developer skill set and less so for, I mean, less so, virtually non-existent in the beginning for a sales and marketing person like myself. And I'll also just note Vladden made a great point in the chat. Says can't be a doctor overnight. A lot of these apps you can just start by building something super basic, which I encourage everybody to do. Start by turning a PDF, like a blog post, into like some sort of interactive app. That's just a single page, something super super simple, and from there you can start, working your way up. Again, Jesse is elite at this, so you're watching a CTO of vibe coding in action.
I
So
was
just
doing a lot
keep
of
that in
copy and
mind.
pasting before the tools were out. That was like the big where I learned because like I was running an agency and then I got a little bit tired of it just because of the demand, the customer like demand of anybody who runs an agency knows what I'm talking about. So, I wanted to go SaaS. Now it has its pros and cons, but we're doing pretty well from a customer perspective, bootstrapped. I think a lot of bootstrappers will come out of these agencies because they run pretty efficient, lean go to market. But, if there's an idea that I'm thinking about, I just like start thinking about how do I prepare this. One site I've used a lot for preparing, it's called Code Guide. I don't know this guy, so I'm not like invested in it, but this one's pretty good for figuring out how to like. Um, there's a lot more of these people are on Twitter or X or whatever. If you want to see like some people that talk about this a lot, but this allows you to build the prompts that build the prompts. So this one's a good. This was one of the sites I used in the beginning, just to learn how to like really. There's certain things you want to plan out before you build the app, and this gives you a good like English to app, right? So if you want to build, like what do I want to build? This gives you a way to prompt out of the like what you actually want in V0 or Lovable or um, those applications.
Yeah, and Joe dropped into the chat too. He says if you're constantly rebuilding, you're doing it wrong. I think that's like a huge highlight of exactly what you're going through now with Code Guide. Is like how well can we structure exactly what we need off the bat, because what happens is you go through like the first few versions usually, and I'm really thinking about V0 here, and I've had this happen with Gemini and GPT as well, where it starts to just like it starts to slowly morph and not be exactly the same as it was before and sort of go into a mind of its own. I don't know if anybody has seen those like time lapse videos on on whatever Reddit or Instagram or wherever you have videos where it's like you're asking an AI bot to replicate a picture 100 times over, and then it like slowly turns into this nonsense. So anyway, all of that tangent just to elaborate on like the importance of that initial prompt being robust, being thorough, really spelling out exactly what the functionality and architecture will be. That way, that V1 of the app does not need this crazy rebuilding, because from there it just gets tougher. Um, okay.
Yeah, you made a lot of good points there. It's like you can get down a rabbit hole pretty quickly, but every time I got down the rabbit hole, eventually what happened is I started to figure out like what was going on. And the best way to figure out how to get out of the jam is to just use AI again to really get out of it. You might have to use some of the thinking model. That really helps a lot. Claude is really good for this for just getting yourself out of the jam of like there's a bug and I don't know how to fix it. Or, look, there's always a time to ask for help. And I know there's a lot of different groups that are forming communities, whatnot, that are doing this. And I start to see like the advantage sales and marketing people have if you're coming from sales and marketing or you run an agency now, you're gonna know better what the app should feel like than probably somebody who's just coming into a cold that's building it on a development level.
Great
Like
point.
that knowledge of you using it. And that's I build sales marketing tools, but I use them for so long, in my career that it really changed. Like I knew exactly what I wanted. It wasn't like it wasn't up for debate. I mean, I've followed that
Right.
pretty close.
Okay, so we have the prompt. We have the prompt that created the prompt, guys. We will give that away. Again, we'll drop in a LinkedIn.
Yep.
Jesse will post it on LinkedIn. I'll put his profile in the chat here. I'll probably share it as well, so you can follow me if you don't already. But here, let me drop Jesse's thing in here. And if you're watching on YouTube, Jesse's LinkedIn is in the description. Okay, so we have the prompt. This thing has just been churning out code since we
It's
started.
churning out some code here, right? What I did is I gave it the prompt up here, right? More of a champion tracker. First thing it had me do was set up the database, of course. That gets set up and then we're in, right? And then let's see here, right? These are the types of bugs that you can have, right? You'll have like it doesn't redirect. This is what I wanted to show people. Like it won't redirect you or something like that. Those are essentially the types of bugs that you can start to have. But what I'm doing is I'm publishing it in Vercel, right? And I'll give it a domain name, and then basically it'll have that, and then what that will do is it'll put it in, and if you're not like following this right now, there's probably more to it. The goal was just to start talking about this, but then it puts it inside your Vercel and this is where it's hosting it. So you're now hosting it inside here. And what we did also is we hooked up a database. So it's now got a database hooked up to it, Neon, which is good. There's two databases most people are using right now, Supabase and Neon are the two. And what we did is we've also got environmental variables. These are the secret kind of components of the application basically for dealing with like authentication and all of that. So it's better to use just like if you're beginning, you should just use it like right out of the gate, use their setup.
So if you're using, so sorry, just to clarify for the audience. So if you're using V0, V0 is a application under Vercel. You can host, you can deploy. Let's say I make a web app. I was talking earlier about turning PDFs into web apps using V0. You can actually, you know what I'll do? I'm going to make this week's cheat sheet an interactive app. That's what I'll do. I'll post it on LinkedIn tomorrow. I'll make it an interactive app so people can see what I'm talking about. But it's all hosted on V0 and Vercel. So like it just totally simplifies. Jesse's obviously an expert and he's hopping between these different things, but starting out with very simple builds and just deploying it exactly right there on the top right through publish. And now you can see if you look at the
you can
address
see it
bar.
crash right in the app. Right. And that's what will happen to many of you when you're doing this. That this will basically you go into here and now you're in now you can see your database. So you can actually see what it did is it actually created the database. So it created the users, that's for logging in or whatever, and then it created who you're watching. So this would be like who you're watching and what would be that, but that would be what the user would submit, right? So the user would submit to here in the application when we finally get into it, right? So we're building it, and this is probably where some of the other people have gone, but with this application. So as it's building here, you're seeing that you're seeing that it's still struggling to get to like the authentication part, which that's why we're building some suspense here. But um, we we're building on that, and then if you continue down the path of this, what you're going to end up having is you'll be able to grab, so if we want to go to the if we want to just start out here with like without the authentication while it's loading, uh SaaS for tracking um employees, and then you give it a then you would just give it the what it would what it would come back from the API, and that's really what you want to do. So basically,
And what
you'll
was that?
get
Sorry, what was that thing you pasted? What was that? What was the
that's
what's
just
the
the return response
okay.
from like what comes through the API,
Okay.
basically. So what it'll do is it'll,
Can you by
you'll
the way,
see,
can you make the
you'll see,
text? Can you do the zoom in
yep,
text thing again?
yes,
Thank you.
on what, which one?
Is there a way to like, oh, you're sharing your whole screen right now. I see, I see.
This one, right?
Yeah, is there like a way to just do the whole like zoom in the whole browser? Like do 150% of the
Yeah,
browser?
yeah. Oh, okay, I got it. There you go.
Yeah. Yes, yes, yes,
So
yes.
yeah,
Perfect.
so
Thank you.
you'll be doing that, and then the things you need to set up with it would be authentication, a database, and this the sidebar of whatever is going to be in the application, and then some feed or some sort for API to get the APIs out of it. Now, if you go on, there's a lot of public APIs. That's the key, is that you'll come up with a lot of these like public sort of APIs. Now you're going to get to see what it looks like to have a like what actually comes into the application. You can pick your sidebar, you can pick all of that. When it starts, you'll see it load up on the screen. So now it's here. Let's just see what it looks like. It'll load up.
Oh
There you go.
yeah, there we go. All right.
Right. So you have that, and now you're building. It's going to go through all the tasks. I got it on advanced mode here, so you're just building the employee overview, creating the job alerts, adding tenure analytics, building employee profiles. So it's going to do all of that, and then what's going to happen is you're going to get an application out of it, right? So it's just takes a little bit of time, but that was like the whole purpose of the show here today, just to keep you in suspense,
Absolutely.
keep you
Now,
here the whole.
Jesse, too, I also want to highlight there's definitely people, we got a couple hundred people in here. There's definitely people who are looking at this and probably feeling a little overwhelmed. Like, wow, that's empowering if I could do that because I'm not a developer. But there's a lot going on here. And there is a lot going on. You've been doing this for a while. So someone said, hey, it looks like I should just hire a developer. What would you say to that? Not just the
Well,
developer,
I
but
think you definitely need to hire. You probably like this is it's there's another type of way to hire developers now, right? The old way you would just hire developers, and you could have that mindset like of just hiring developers, but like if you're building a profitable company and you don't like, I didn't have enough money. Like for me, I didn't have enough money to hire, and I didn't want to raise. I worked for companies that were venture backed, and I disliked it with passion. So I wanted to build it myself. Now, what you can definitely do is you can hire a different like cost of the developer, right? You're probably not hiring the developer that's at Google, like an architect at Google. You're probably hiring maybe somebody who's maybe a gig worker or something like that that can help you sort of publish the app, and they can grow with you, right? But you're not. What people do is they'll spend like thousands of dollars on these MVP apps from these companies, and then they ship at the end of it, and nothing, they get nothing out of it because they don't really know how it works. They don't know if they're getting the right stuff. Like it becomes pretty much a waste of time, right? And
uh,
you could just take that mindset of hiring developers, but like,
I
if you
would
don't
say
have unlimited money, that's hard.
I would say too, Jesse, like the way to suss that out too, like, I mean, hiring somebody who really uses these tools is I mean, I think going to get you'll basically get like a team of four, for the price of one. And I think a good way, while you're interviewing and searching for developers, like Jesse's built a ton of back end stuff for just tools internally for LeadMagic, just stuff for him to use. And when Jesse has shown me those apps, or I mean, even what we're looking at right now, and he's doing it live, like this is another one, this LeadMagic Command Center.
One
This
took me
is
like a day probably to build. Basically, I just wanted to track every time somebody mentioned our company on LinkedIn. So I just built this basically, and this was all vibe code, right? I would just add. So what we look for is like, okay, are they a partner? Are they more of a competitor? What's the mentions? And now I could ship this app and probably charge people for it. They would probably buy it because it's valuable and it updates every day. But like this took me like a day to build now. Um, and I would say this is on par with any sort of SaaS application that's out there from a just looking at it. But what I want to track is like, are they talking about us? What are they saying about our company? We get a lot of inbound leads just because people mention us, but this is like an internal application for our company, right? We have a CRM that's internal. We basically just built every app internally instead of,
and
use.
this listening tool is crazy because a lot of I mean, the commercialized social listening tools for LinkedIn are really, really spotty. And I've worked with yours, Jesse. It is not, it's like crazy accurate. Is that because you're not commercializing it and you get the advantage of like them not knowing about you, or like maybe your the rate at which I mean, because you're really more or
I think
less doing like a
Trigify is
straight.
the best out there. The only thing I wanted though is and the reason I'm obviously not even doing that. Trigify is probably the best one out there, but my focus was only on my company, so it was like I don't really care, and I want to plug it into like some of the other data that we already have. Like it just helps us figure out like, hey, are people talking about our products? Are like what's going on there, right? Um,
Especially great
that
if you were running an influencer campaign or some sort
yes,
of user
yeah, that's
generated
huge.
content campaign. I mean, that especially on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is incredibly tough to dig insights out of. They keep as much behind the curtain as they can, which is a lot.
Yeah, you
And
just got to figure that part out. Then here, I'm just going to add a data table, which we can add users to from their business profile like this and use this API. So then you would just have that go in there. We let that build and then, but I'll let that build. I just want to make sure that builds. And then, what basically you can do is sort of use this, um, use this to figure out what actually is going to happen. And then you could build an employee tracker SaaS product pretty quickly, right? And it might even be better than some of the ones that are out there because they're not using the same, this is like the most modern versions of all of the tools and hosting providers. So it's pretty solid. And, I just think getting an MVP out faster is better and getting people to try it, use it. You'll get to a point where you can be good at this. It took a little bit of time, it's all I do now. Like I don't take Zoom calls. I'm not like talking to customers every day anymore. I'm just doing this now. So everything I do is this with LeadMagic. Like I don't not do anything else. So
which is
um,
incredible. And it's V0 really is your main tool when it comes to actually
I would
generating
say it's
production ready
Cursor. If I
code.
had to say what I use the most,
Okay.
it's Cursor. So Cursor is like it's basically like where developers usually use Visual Studio. It's Visual Studio, but it's like it's got the chatbot implemented into it because but this is probably a little too much for somebody in the beginning. So, you stick back to this. So then you can, do that, right? That's the trick there, right? So if we're going to add an employee, we just, see like you could add this sort of like employee tracker. Things are going to not work right away. So the add employee button doesn't work, so fix it so it store or get the data from the API. And then, you can integrate as many APIs into these applications as you want. And that's sort of the way to do it. And then you own the code too, right? Like you're not using another application. You don't have any cost associated with this code, right? Like this code is yours and you can do whatever you want with it, right? It's all right here. So there's no IP you're losing. You own it all. You can do a
You can
lot with
just
this.
download all that. You can just download it into one big
Yeah.
zip file and send it over to some. I mean, it's
Yeah, you can put
press
it in
ready.
GitHub would be the best way to do it. And then you put it in GitHub and then now you're using it. Um, and what happens is these applications, you probably what I would do is start very small, like only build one thing for one person, right? Like you hear this all the time. But when you go wide and you come up with all these ideas, like just build something simple that kind of fits your current brand or your agency or something you know how to do well. That's the key. If you can focus there and not like people try to bake it all into one right away, and it gets really painful. Like you just won't be successful if you try to do that. I started with just email validation.
Now on the okay, so like let's take that idea of building it kind of bit by bit and just contextualize that using the screen we're already looking at. Okay, so we have these different functions. We have tenure analytics, job changes, let's say employee overview and job changes. So let's say there was a bug with job changes and you really had to go deeper into kind of debugging that. Do you ever find yourself in these like broken loops essentially with the bot? I've done that with
Yes.
V0. It's like fix with V0. I click it, it spits out another version, and then it's like
Good
broken
point.
fix with V0, and I'm just in that loop. And then it's almost like that bulk code that I'm trying to work on is less usable because it just keeps rewriting this thing and not really fixing anything.
Yes, that happens all the time. And one of the best ways to solve that, which is I'll show you, but one of the best ways, that's when you start, if you really want to, unless you understand the code or whatever. I mean, at this point, it's easier now for me, but what you can do when you get into that rut right there is, at a very high level, you can go and just start you can put it into, the best way to do that is to probably put it into GitHub. Now it's like kind of free in the sense that it can be used in other tools. So what I would do here now is, I'd go into Cursor, right? Cursor is an IDE, so it's like a little bit more technical, a little bit more, it can connect to it a little bit easier. I would clone it in Cursor, right? And then I would have that. Now what I would be able to do is I would be able to open it in Cursor because I pushed it over here. So now you can see the whole code base. And this is kind of going now. The fun thing to do is have like 5 of these up at once, just like letting it, like letting it go that way. But so now it's in Cursor, it's here. So then you can go in here and you could say, go through the application and find the areas where it isn't, where there are bugs. Right. Now, this helps a lot of people get out of the V0 loops or like lovable loops. And what you're doing is you're basically, I put it on ask mode. I don't want it to control anything. There's a little bit of a difference between ask and agent, but essentially what you're doing here is you're just like asking it what's going on with the code. That will help you get out of a lot of those jams, right? So
So
that's what I would
that
say.
thing of like parsing out through GitHub. So you have you so let's just go through the whole process kind of from where we started, just as kind of a midway recap. So we have our initial prompt. Again, we'll share that with you. That initial prompt spits out this more or less this YOLO prompt, this really long thing that has all the architecture and stuff lined out and functionality. That way we can put it into V0. V0 then is spitting out the whole thing in one long run. From there, once you have all of this, you can flip over from the preview to the code section. You can download the full code, and it'll have all of the little functionality areas. So in this case, it would have, your employee overview and your job changes and things like that. To debug, put it into GitHub, and then you can start debugging still with text prompts. You're just dropping that folder of code into here and saying, hey, I'm experiencing this error. You can copy and paste the error that you got from wherever it was, V0 cursor, and then have it just fix that specific thing. So there's a lot of there's some things to look out for. Again, this is an advanced version. The goal here is to show everyone the capabilities, not just, hey, here's how you can nail a working app immediately after this call. You
Yeah.
could
So the goal,
look
so
out for.
basically what you found is like there are bugs that have been sort of pushed in through here, but what I think the key is if you really focus on prompting before you send it over here, getting an MVP of what you want the app to look like don't, doing all of that, then you really don't understand. You're very close to being able to ship that application. The harder part before was this part of it, right? Like this part of it's changed quite a bit. Now, are there still little interaction bugs when you start tying in databases and things like that? Yes. Authentication usually is a problem. The other stuff that's a problem is the database, like starting it, seeding it, doing that stuff. Like that stuff's usually pretty hard, but that's where, so people are, part of this was to show limitations. So where you probably want to stop is like get this part done first, right? Like figure out exactly how you want this to look with sample data, do that, and then start to incorporate some of the APIs that are out there that you could put inside your application, right? Whatever you want that interaction to be. Try to implement them, but I'll tell you that's where you're probably going to get stuck first, is that part right there. And that's also a good spot where security will become an issue. So you're probably going to want to be careful there too. So that's why, but getting this part done first should be pretty easy with any of the tools that are out there, right? I think that's the way what I was trying to get at with people is like start to get the application to look like this or whatever, then go from here, figure out how you want that to look, then go find the data where you need it and find, that might be where you need a developer.
Yeah, and I think just this, like, what you were showing before of like just take one functionality at a time, one small bit at a time. When you built LeadMagic, you were really just doing email validation, not just. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
big
We
thing,
just
right?
took
There's a
our
lot of
agency. We had a no-code agency portal that we turned into a SaaS, basically, right? That's what it was. It was like how we did email validation, and then we just kept going. Like there was just more and more things that we shipped. Then we realized we also had like another way. We had a way to get like analytics out of our email campaigns. That was like the other thing we were doing. So we tried both. We found that the data part went a lot better. Then people started using us in Clay and they started using us in a lot of other tools. We kind of were early on there, and that is how the journey started, really. But I think getting this out, the economics are good, right? So if you have an API that costs a penny or two, right? 3, 4 cents, whatever. And then you have a user that's paying $20 a month, $50 a month, $100 a month. It's pretty good. The only time it becomes bad is when you got to really go, it could get worse when you start to have to hire a big team, a bunch of developers. Then you get really high and you go after the VC money, right? And you're like, oh, I'm going to go build this, and then you're caught up on one idea. It's just, I see this happen all the time. Like try to get it, even if it's a few $1,000 investment to get a developer to kind of help you push it over the end zone, you probably want to do that, right? Like that, that's what you want to do, right? Um,
which you could even hire on a project basis. You don't have to like bring on this like CTO or this like full time. I mean, developers are expensive. A lot of them are super talented, and with talent in any domain comes expense.
yeah.
So if you're able to get to this sort of, there's a lot of talk in the chat right now of this, just get it to 80% and then have a developer deal with the security and the other stuff. Now there, you can vibe code that as well. But we're getting into more of that upper echelon of knowledge, expertise, and just probably
Start
a
with an
lot of time
internal
estimate.
app is what I would say. If you're an agency, the best way to do it is start having somebody build start vibe coding some internal applications, right? I mean, that's what we did, right? So we're really good at like building. We had an application to read the emails. We had an application to you know, respond. We did everything there because we were doing a lot of like cold emails campaigns. Also to build the list, like we had a lot of those already rolling for us, right? Then what happened? But those are, and quite frankly, we actually scaled to like $30,000 a month on no code. So the first application we had wasn't even code; it was just um, so that was the like that's the real kicker is that people don't really care. They just care about the application itself and what's in it, and that's what they actually care about. So you gotta really like if you're going out and you're spending 20, $30,000 on an MVP, you're raising money, you're doing all this stuff, like you're doing stuff that's going to cost you a lot of time later. And that's why I like Adam's approach to the problem with the way that he goes at it with bootstrapping and that, because you don't even know if you're going to want to do it. Like you might not even like selling the product that you make. So
Totally. And I think this too it allows for this way leaner company than you've ever been able to have before. So I mean, I'll give three examples. One is LeadMagic. I mean, Jesse, you have a really small team. You are
yeah, we have like
doing
we have a couple contract. So everybody's on a contract, and then we have I have like a couple of developers that I work with that are on a contract, and then we have 1,300 customers or so, a little over that. And then, we're growing pretty quick. We're obviously in some ecosystems, done pretty well with community and whatnot there. But yeah, so it's been good. I mean, this is all I do. I don't actually get on calls anymore or anything like that. I'm just doing this pretty much all day.
Yeah, and you know what? This also, uh, I'll give the RB2B example, and then I'll just kind of throw out like what it gives you the ability to do. But like, I mean, RB2B now, I mean, I'm now part time at RB2B. I don't know how many folks know that. July 1st, I've soft launched my own business this summer. It's a marketing consultancy focused around positioning and content marketing, things like that. I'll make a bigger announcement later in the fall. But I'm able to service my clients, more clients, and with more value than I possibly would have without any of these tools beforehand. I mean, the type of consultancy I've sort of soft launched and I'm building would not have been possible 2 years ago, 3 years ago. On the RB2B front, it's really Rob, who is Rob Clark, if you guys follow him on LinkedIn, he's like, I think he's head of AI now is his title, but all the customer support and sales is run by AI now at RB2B. Now, that handles like 95+% of all the inquiries from a support and a sales standpoint. Yeah, is there stuff falling through the cracks? Sure. But it's not worth it to actually hire somebody to do that. It's worth it to have this really lean team of 3 people, or in Jesse's, case, a couple of contractors and himself. What it allows you the ability to do is like have these crazy offers because you don't have this wild overhead. You don't have these investors that you have to sort of suffice and make sure they get their, some X multiple of their return back. You don't really have to worry about anything other than like growing your business, doing things that are interesting and valuable to your market. I mean, Jesse or Adam, which both have done at certain points, can run these insane premium motions and product led growth motions because they can just sort of make these decisions knowing that there's already great margin coming through, and this is only going to be better for awareness marketing, stuff like that. So just the way it allows you to I guess be more free in all aspects of your approach is really an amazing thing. So and I see a couple people dropped in. Can we see how you can help us? Yeah, I'll drop in my email here. You can drop me an email. Happy to talk with anybody. And yeah, shoot me an email. I'll do an actual announcement. I've soft launched. We're figuring this thing out. All right, Jesse, let's go back to this app. Where are we at on the debugging and
Yeah,
build?
so it's so basically we'll launch through so the application itself, like basically what you want to do is, you have the API. What the API will do is it'll allow you to get so like let's just see here, I'll show you on this. Basically on here, you would have like this is what so if we were going to push this in, right, this would be like what an actual API call would look like. You'd have that. So then through here, through the app, people could sign in here, they could do whatever, and then the this would be like the entire application really, and you would just ship with this really, so you wouldn't have to do anything else.
Incredible. Um, what can you list like what are so you have the social listening tool with LinkedIn built in internally.
Yep.
You have your
Yeah,
own
that one. We
CRM.
have the social listening one for us. So this is like today, this is how many, this is like a post that just came out on LinkedIn. So then we go here and you just respond to it. Now the way I built this was similar. You just go to, you find like the dashboard that you want and you V0 through this thing. And then if you want to add companies to the list, so if I wanted to add like Gong or something, I would add Gong. But I mean, this would be something you might buy as like a SaaS application, right? So you'd have that, and then you can look at the trends. Like I just measure certain things, um, like which companies are people talking about. I'm looking at specifically at competitors, are more people talking about Find Email or LeadMagic, things like that. Clay getting a lot of mentions. What are like who's talking about them? Those types of things, really. Um, So this is just an internal app, but like we do that a lot. So we build a lot of these internal apps. It helps us really change our we get all of the data, like we know what's going on, and it's easier to ship these products that way.
This is so crazy. I mean, the amount, not only the amount that you've like saved by doing this, but like the ability
Yeah.
to literally build your own world without, basically from a sales marketing agency guy. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So
It's every agency should be looking at this right now because it's gotten so much, it's gotten a lot easier. Like, um, you know what I mean? Like it really ought to be looking at it. And the people who know are the people who are doing the job, like what needs to be out there. Here's the app that we were just building with the here, I'll show you. Oops. Um, right here. So this is like the champion tracker app, right? So you would have this. So we added the GAW, we added that. So we have essentially this would be your like login, your log out, and then what would happen is you would just input all of the URLs. This is what we vibe coded at the beginning. So, if you put those in, if you put one in that would never work there, that's wrong. And then you could just enter in all of that. So if it's like you just put them all on the watch list and it just shows up here. Now, what's funny is this did not work when I was doing it in V0, right? I had to bring it into Cursor to finish it, right? So there was a bunch of problems and Cursor fixed it right here. So, it's still fixing it, right? It's still going through it, making it better, but it's all done through there, and that just allows us to do it. So if you want to see if they change jobs, you just put this on a scheduled update. You'd have it call the API, telling you that the person changed jobs.
this is so crazy. So we have a comment in the chat. It says, I had a realization that what I need is an AI forward developer. My developer is always just saying how it's easier to just code from scratch because these tools create more junk. They can create, you can use them to create.
So I would challenge that. If you wanted your developer to debate me on it, I would love to do that because I'll tell you that was most of the mindset of most of the developers that I know. And I have some really good friends who are developers, and then I've converted a lot of them over, and I've shown them. I've said like, all right, let's do this. You're going to build this app. I'm going to build this app. Let's see who can build it faster. I don't know how to code, and let's see who can build a better app. And I will beat them 99% of the time. Like there's no question I'm going to beat them 99% of the time.
What are the
because
cases in which you can't? Like, what are some of those
the
edge
only
case
case that I
limitations?
couldn't is if it was extreme. I can't think of a case actually, really. It would be, I can't really think of a case. I think it would be like, I'm just, I never want to say 100 because I'm sure somebody could figure it out. But like, here's where where it gets really crazy. When you know how to use the rules in Cursor, and you're able to like really box the app in, and you know how to do like this, like you're able to do the testing in here, which is what's happened. So that app V0, the app broke like when I was building it, like in V0. So when I brought it in here, I found every bug and fixed every single bug that it found, and a couple of the issues. There was like even a security issue it fixed. Now, if the part that most people wouldn't know how to do, right, is they wouldn't know how to troubleshoot that and fix that. Now, I don't know how to even do that really. Like, I don't even know. I'd have to go back and look and see what happened, but it actually did it. And since I have all of the stuff connected, it fixed all of the issues. There was actually a database issue right here, right? That's what happened. There was a database issue. So I don't know. That was like a V0 screwed up when it built the database, but now it just fixed it all. So now I'm like completely back at zero, right? Like, you know, it was a moment of time. There was 3 minutes left on the webinar. We just built the whole app. Now it's done, right? Now I only entered in one prompt up here, right? Like if you find bugs in your application, you know, go to the application to find the bugs. And then I said, fix the bugs, and it fixed them all. So,
That's
I mean,
always my
it's built.
favorite thing, Jesse, by the way, is when there's this like big problem that you need to solve and you're like, find the bugs or make this shorter
Yeah.
and better. Like, and then it does.
I mean,
Uh,
it's like if you know what the modern stack looks like, you're gonna have a hard. Developers are gonna have a hard time beating you. The best developers are using AI now, best by far.
that's
None of them are just not using it. Like they know how good it is. They're just the good ones are.
Yeah, I think that is a huge takeaway for the folks here because I'm sure you spent a lot of time learning this. I'm really in my infancy in this, so it would be tough for me. I'm working on an app for my own business. It's more of an internal app or ones that I can just use with my clients, but even the piece by piece of that is like I'm getting quicker, but like the troubleshooting thing is pretty can be pretty, I guess, not heavy, but it can be a bit of a loop that you get stuck in, a little tough. So this is crazy. I mean, now guys, if Jesse wanted to like launch this, I mean, he'd probably make the UI look a little bit better with some good screenshots, tack on a Stripe integration, and then blast that out to the world. And it could kind of be a live thing here. So
We
um
would have to. I'd have this thing launched this afternoon. We'd already be shipping it. So we'd have our first subscription by the end of the call.
that's
Remember, you're
amazing.
selling a service too. They're buying you, they're buying your service. So like if your brand, like you got to think about that in SaaS. They're buying a service. Like if wherever it is now, maybe you go on AppSumo, launch an LTD or something. Like the good thing about it is the cost of running this application is so like you could do everything I've just done on the free tier, except for the data on the data on the figuring out if they work at the company anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just that
Everything
data
else is
part.
free tier stuff, right?
This is incredible. So, I mean, for folks listening, find a problem internally that you guys are having, or maybe something that just takes way too long to do manually. Vibe code it out, start your journey, even if it's just from a content basis. Hop into V0, start playing around. That is all we can encourage you to do. Jesse is going to drop the prompt that he's been using onto LinkedIn. Follow him on LinkedIn. I'm popping his LinkedIn message or profile there. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, it will be in the description. Jesse, thank you so much for joining, my friend.
Yeah,
We got to
definitely.
do this again soon. We're doing this again soon.
Definitely.
Next week, folks, we have the show time is going to be 1:30 Pacific, or excuse me, 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. We have Josh Abramson. He is the founder of College Humor, Vimeo, Busted Tees, T Public, total serial entrepreneur, especially from the early days of the internet. Then I think he launched College Humor in like 1999. I mean, that was where all the funny stuff was online. It was like that and E-Bombs world. So it's going to be a great episode. We're excited to have Josh on. The recording will be live on YouTube within 24 hours or so, folks. And that's all. that's all I got. Jesse, thank you for showing us. I mean, I've gone through this with you, and you even blew my mind today. So I got to thank you so much for coming on. And guys, check out LeadMagic. And with that,
Check
we
it
will
out.
see you next week.
See you next
Take care,
week. Yep.
everyone.